Hi, welcome to Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. Tonight we have a special guest, Clint Eastwood. Welcome, Clint.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. So, tonight we're doing a special interview of your childhood and growing up through life and what made you influential and how you are today.
Sounds good.
Alright, so in the setting of where you were born and in the early stages, what was your childhood like?
Well, I grew up in the 30s, and it was a hard time, and both my parents were struggling to hold on to whatever jobs they could. And my dad would, I remember one specific instance where my dad picked up the entire family and moved us halfway across California to Pacific Palisades, near Malibu, just so he could work as a gas station attendant.
So this was due to the troubling times and the lack of money in your family?
Yes, because it was the 30s, and you had to hold on to whatever job you could, no matter how low paying it was.
Got it. So, what was your family like in their life and status?
Well, we weren't very rich. Well, I had my sister Jean, who was born in 1934, 3 years after me. And since my family moved around a lot, because after the gas station job dried up, we had to move around a lot. So it was hard for me to make friends going from school to school. So I never really got to know people, and it was hard for me to make friends.
So, during that moving around stages, what was your school and education like?
Well, I never really went to a real school until we settled down near the Piedmont area, near Oakland. And there I attended Piedmont Middle School. And then from then on, I went to Piedmont High School, and I never really finished Piedmont High School. So I went to a finishing school where I managed to get my diploma.
And were you acting or having friends during this time?
Well, I didn't really act that much right now. I remember one specific instance where I was scheduled to be put as the lead actor in a play at school, and my teacher forced me into it, and she said that I had to. And so I played the lead role, and I was horrible at it. I was a horrible actor. I said all my lines wrong, I swore, and then after that I swore I would never act again.
So, when did you get into acting?
Well, I got into acting really after I realized that I couldn't really do what I wanted to do, which was become a jazz musician, and I really had nowhere else to go, so I decided I'd try acting, and I really liked it.
Nice. So, what were the most memorable incidences? What was one from your childhood and one from your adult life?
Well, one memorable incident of my childhood was when I was very little, 5-ish, I think. I went out in the ocean with my father, and a big wave took us out, and then I blacked out and was about to drown. And thankfully my father swam down and picked me up, and then he brought me to shore safely. And then my mother, from then on, every day she'd bring me down to the beach just so I wouldn't be afraid of the ocean when I was older. And then I'd have to say, one from my adult life that would probably influence me was when it was the 50s near Korea, the Cold War, and they were drafting, and so I was the perfect age to get drafted. I had no real skills. I was a college dropout, and so I was going to get drafted, and I tried to apply to a college, but they said that I didn't have enough credits to get in, so I was sent to a lower grade school, which didn't get me exempted from the draft, and I was drafted.
Oh, so you did go into the Army.
I did go into the Army, but thankfully I didn't have to fight in Korea.
Good. So, during your life, what was your main hardships and obstacles?
Well, some of the main hardships I had was when I finally got my acting career off, my first big break was on the show Rawhide, and I played a character called Rowdy Yates. And after I wanted to get into more deeper roles, it was really hard for me just because people associated with me as Rowdy Yates, and it was hard for me to break out of that role as Rowdy Yates. The network company, really didn't want me as any other role, and so it was hard for me to break out of that. And then also another big setback was when my acting career was I was off the ground and it was going fine until I suffered a major setback when I tried to make a musical. And it sounds funny, you can't really imagine me in a musical, but
no.
When I did a musical, it was horrible. It got horrible reviews, and it said it was one of the worst movies ever made. And so that really set back my acting career a lot, and so I had to overcome that.
So in that stage, how did you become the man, the powerful the wealthy, the successful man you are today?
Well, the really big break that separated me and made me get money, power, all of that, was when Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars. When he first directed that, it made me popular, it got me well known. In the beginning, it was just called a spaghetti western, just because it was an Italian western.
Mm-hmm.
So when it finally hit America, it was a huge hit, and then I became a really big star.
So, as the money came in, what were your relationships like with other girls?
Well, people would normally call me a womanizer just because I have 7 kids, and not all of them are with one woman. And I was married to my wife, Maggie, for half my life, really. And Maggie, me and Maggie had an open marriage, really. She knew what I did on the sets of movies, and she kind of accepted that. And we realized we were both two independent people who weren't always together, but we respected each other's mutual privacy.
Okay, so what was your biggest accomplishment?
I'd have to say one of my biggest accomplishments is probably my directing career more than my acting career. I've directed multiple movies, Flags of Our Fathers, The Departed. I'd have to say my favorite directing movie was probably Hang 'em High, just because it was the first movie that I got to have complete control over. And really, I like to mention my directing careers just because I started my own directing company, and that was kind of unheard of just because actors, they didn't really like the actors directing because they normally went horribly over the budget.
Right.
And so when I started my own directing company, I showed the Universal that you didn't need 23-man crews and $3 million budgets for a movie that should only take 2 people and like a $100,000 budget. And I really showed them this new way of directing was better, cleaner, more easy to understand, really.
Well, thank you very much. That's all the time we have today. But before we leave, can we get a famous Clint Eastwood quote?
Why, sure.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Well, do you, punk?
You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Well, do you, punk?
Get 3 coffins ready.
Get 3 coffins ready. I think it's great. It's history making.